Keep that a
Okay,
little
thank you. All right, we've got a busy agenda. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I welcome everybody here this evening and those that are watching on cable. First item on our agenda is why don't we skip all of that? Let's see. Let's do the joint appointment to the secondary school committee. Secondary building committee, excuse me. Who's making that proposal?
I'll make the motion.
You wanna make the motion? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move to place the following names in nomination as voting members of the Secondary Schools Building Committee: Aldo Tramatozzi, Bill Dardino, Dan McGinnis, Jack Pecora, John Fouchier, Middle School Principal, Wayne Hardacre, Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds, Greg Belluconis, Town Administrator.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Delaney, seconded by Mr. Prisco. We need a roll call vote on this.
What are we doing? We're expanding?
We're expanding the voting members.
From how many to how many?
Mr. Webster?
Did you get to the, mic there?
Mel Webster, School Committee Chairman. We had, our policy previously did not only allow for a certain number of voting members on our boards, our subcommittees, especially for the building subcommittees. We've changed the policy to allow all members of building subcommittees to be voting members. And once we did that, we are now moving to make all members of this committee voting members. I believe right now there are 6 voting members.
13.
And there'll be
There's 13 right now.
Right. So there's 13 voting members, there will be 20 voting members. So everybody on the committee will be a voting member.
And in the case of the tie, Mel, you get to break the tie? Or,
A few more members will be able to carry this thing right through.
Make everybody a member of
That's
the
what Jerry's
committee
working towards.
to get it passed.
So Mel, just so I understand, this is driven by a change in the school committee policy or some state requirement, or both?
It's driven by a change in school committee policy. It also was our desire. We have a lot of members who've put a lot of time and effort into this committee and who've been on the committee for a long time. And I think we as a school committee felt that all of those members should be given an opportunity to vote on the project moving forward.
So 100% of the proposed names are going to be potentially voted in, or? I mean, that's the proposal here.
These members here are the...
They're already on the committee, but not
They're
voting
non-voting
members.
members.
We're all associate non-voting members, correct?
So I think
Take
I'll,
one person at a time, is that how you want to do it?
what do you think?
No,
Waive the,
Yeah, I don't see why you...
unless somebody has an objection or wants to go by.
I'll waive the need for a roll call vote unless someone has an objection on the school committee or the Board of Selectmen.
But not a roll call, no. I don't think, you just say you have a roll call vote, but as far as voting on them individually,
Right.
in other words, so we'll vote on them collectively, we still should have a roll call
You just
vote.
have an individual.
Okay, all right, we'll have a roll call vote on the motion,
Right.
and that'll get duly recorded.
And you have one absent.
Yes, one absent.
Further discussion? And on the motion, we'll start with the school committee, Mr. Webster.
Aye.
Mr. Patty? Aye. Mr. Venezia? Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Prisco?
Aye.
Mr. Delaney?
Aye.
Mr. Yule?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Who's missing?
Michael.
Michael K.
Oh, Michael, right. Okay, they do indeed. That's unanimous for those here present and voting. That's it.
Thank you.
Is it okay if we stay for the budget here?
Absolutely.
Real
Not a
funny.
budget hearing.
I'd asked Mr. Venezia to text us the score of the game, but,
He doesn't text, what?
but he doesn't text.
Doesn't work on the 2 tin cans in the row.
All right. I was gonna ask you to text us the scores, but I know you don't text.
Call me, I'll.
That's right, the basketball game's tonight.
We have anybody here, Greg, for seasonal
No, I don't
renewals
see
that are
anyone
present
here
in the
for the
audience?
season-
Well,
no.
we'll pick up that after the budgets then. So the first budget, CPC, are they here?
They are.
She's right there.
I saw Heidi, I didn't see anyone else.
Did you do public comment?
I didn't see it.
Bob? Bob, did you do public comment?
No, we're gonna come back to that,
Okay.
just to keep on tab 30. Tab 30,
Thanks, Joe.
You set me up.
He's trying to look like he's been cracking the books here quite a bit.
Literally cracking.
you set?
All set? Good evening. My name is Heidi Griffin. I'm the Community Planning Administrator for the town. Essentially, what you guys have in your packets is the same budget that we've utilized for the last few years. The only difference that you'll see in it is this year, we were asked by the Recreation Department to add into one of our line items, the cost for a consultant to update the town's open space and recreation plan. The reason why they asked us to do it is because in the past, it was paid out of the Parks and Rec's budget. My understanding is that budget is now fee-funded. They don't have an operating budget. At the time, Brian Wood, who was the former Parks and Rec director, paid for it, but he had me do the RFP and the selection process for him. So between the TA recommended budget and what's in mine, that's the only item that wasn't funded. Everything else is, it's outside professional services. And then you have an attached estimate for the consultant that you hired 5 years ago and it's $17,100. And what happens is, the reason why they asked us to do it is because typically our department applies for grants. If you don't have an updated open space and recreation plan, your conservation and Parks and Rec departments can't apply for grants. You're ineligible. Same as if you don't have an updated Commonwealth capital.
Greg, could you care to comment on that?
What's that?
Could you care to comment?
No, sir, not at all.
I'd like a little bit of, and once again, recreation is not taking it out of their budget
Correct.
because, again,
The explanation given to me is because I think in the past, it was funded out of their operating budget. I think if I understand it correctly, they no longer have an operating budget or
They have an operating budget, but it's only for salaries.
Okay,
They don't have, you guys took, 3 years ago, you took everything that they had except for salaries for, I think, 2 employees. And
So-
you could see that tonight.
right.
So, it's either you increase their budget tonight and put it back, which is fine, you can do that, but
Yeah, it doesn't, I think Maureen just asked me because my name was all over the files from when we
After you paid
completed
out
it.
of an operating budget? Is that the,
well, you can't take it out of, you're saying taking out of revolving account?
Yeah.
Out of whose revolving account?
Parks and Rec? That's where it was paid out of before, right?
Not out of
The difference-
revolving. It was
But the
taken out of
difference
operating.
is, what you're saying is because your operating budget has been reduced, most of their funding comes through the revolving.
Is this an annual,
No.
It's actually required by the state to be updated every 5 years, which
Every
they
5
actually
years.
just changed it to
It was
7.
actually done in the form of a warrant article last time.
That's right.
It was not in anyone's budget.
But the money didn't go through, I thought it was in the operating budget though, because when it got out,
No,
no?
it was a warrant. I'm positive it was a warrant article. It stood alone. But you're right, Park and Rec may have had control over it in terms of how it was expended, but it
Yeah.
stood alone.
Okay.
Because it was considered to be a one-time project, we didn't want to put it in anyone's budget.
Is that the 1560?
That
It's
seems like it's
actually,
auto-
Every 5 years.
it's 19,060. My regular line item is only 1560. So the difference that you're seeing between the TA recommended and level funded is that amount for the estimate.
We haven't had any further appropriations to this since it was originally done. It could be something that we fund with one-time money at town meeting.
So it's 17,500.
Correct. I have copies of the estimates too, if you need those as well.
I would recommend that we pull it out of here and
Do a warrant article.
put it on a warrant article.
What was that amount again, 1750? 1750?
17,500.
17,000?
The difference in there, 5,200 purchase of services. What, in terms of the
That's it.
planning commission activity, and
Thank you.
have we seen a pickup in anything?
We've seen a tremendous
Things are
pickup
breaking
in,
up a little bit, or?
we've seen a huge pickup in commercial activity primarily. The majority of our agendas have been dominated by commercial activity. And also in speaking with the assessor, there was an article in the Globe actually talking about how throughout the Commonwealth, housing stats are like 2% down, but she said in North Reading they're actually 10% up. So,
10% up?
yes, but I think the majority of that is the build-out of the Bradford Pond subdivision. You know, I think for us to have a 31-lot subdivision during this economy is unusual. So, but we do have a lot of inquiries lately about property on 28 and Concord Street.
Sean?
Patty, I see in your program description, you have a bullet, economic development.
Yes.
You have a strategy. Is there a team, how are you going about that? And is there a team to track economic development? And if not, do you think it'd be a benefit to have a team that's made up of volunteers?
I actually think it would be worth, yes, actually, I was just talking to the planner, with the planner, we're gonna meet next week from the town of Reading. They have a very active economic development subcommittee. So I was asking her, on their website, they have a list of vacant commercial property. So it was something I was looking to adopt and incorporate, and unfortunately, she's new, she's not sure how they compiled it. So I was thinking maybe between driving up and down Route 28 and listing it and adding it to the assessor's data. But the sole focus of that subcommittee is just to promote economic development, expedited permitting. I do think in communities that have that type of subcommittee, I find it to be very helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have
I think
just
it's a
one
great asset.
focus goal.
And I
And
think
that's
the
it.
chamber actually helps them,
I think so as well.
by the way.
I think they'd help us too, so I
Yeah.
think it'd be
Yes.
worthwhile to pursue that.
No, and I think it would tie in nicely with even the stuff we're doing in the wastewater.
I think it
Keep
would
them
as well.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. O'Leary?
I have only one comment. It's actually a request. Our GIS position,
I did have that question.
okay, it has, obviously, due to the economy for the last few years, the position was frozen when it was vacated. I'm gonna say it was approximately two years ago.
Yeah.
So what we've been doing since that time is we've been paying consultants to produce all the GIS maps in the interim. What I did is I actually went through and tallied up the costs that we've spent over over just this fiscal year, and obviously the fiscal year isn't completed. DPW is a heavy user of the mapping, primarily because they need it for things like sidewalks, snow and ice, as well as my department. And we have also been updating the assessor's map for the assessor's department. This year, DPW spent $19,414, and we've spent $2,550, which totals approximately $23,000, and the fiscal year isn't over. The position is funded for, I believe, approximately $25,000. Kind of find it hard to believe between now and the end of the year we're not going to spend more than $2,000. So it sort of seems like at the time we went through it, we had to, but at this point, I think our costs of expenses for consultants